Hello and welcome to the Monday podcast from allthingsgerman.net and pensionssprachschule.de.
Good morning.
Today, we're on the balcony.
We're on my balcony.
It's not warm. We're on the balcony in coats, but we're here to talk about our first book review. And the book, which I've just finished reading, is called, in German, Ich bin dann mal weg. Mm-hmm. I'm gone, so to speak. I'll be just gone. From Hape Kerkeling, who is a German comedian who took a walk along the Camino de Santiago in northern Spain to Santiago de Compostela. Yeah, and
that's usually a pilgrimage walk, isn't it?
That's a pilgrimage. He is officially a pilgrim. He started in southern France, had his so-called Pilgerpass and pilgrim's passport, so to speak, and walked from the southern France to Santiago in northwest Spain.
That's a route of about 600 kilometers?
It's about 600 kilometers. I think it was about 6 weeks walk he took.
So did he do that for his own spiritual cleansing, or was he just really trying to get away from home?
I think a bit of both.
Oh, yeah.
If you read the book, it starts off. Yes, he wants to go away, and he's read books about doing this, and wants to try it for himself. But on the other side, he does also talk about, yes, not spiritual cleansing, but certainly finding his own personal inner self, and trying to find a motto for each day of what have I learned on this day about myself.
Right, but one critic has said that he kind of took the easy way. Is that true? I mean, he didn't really go like most people would. He
didn't take the way that a lot of the, let's say, the strict pilgrims would do, because certainly in the nights, there's quite a few nights, more than half, he's spent in guest houses, in hotels.
I see.
Meaning that you need to get your stamp, you need to get an official stamp to say you've been to the various pilgrimage places. So he was going to these places, getting his stamp, and then going to his hotel. That's how he describes it in the book, which wasn't always popular when he goes into, say, an abbey or something, and monks give him the stamp and off he goes again, rather than stay the night. But he talks about why he didn't like doing that. He did stay some nights in these places, and they were very crowded rooms, and when you hear like 20 people to a room and not getting much sleep, you can understand maybe why he did it that way. The other thing is, at the beginning of the book, when his feet hurt quite a bit, he takes maybe a bus or a train to the next stop, and so that he keeps on moving rather than taking another day off and being slower, which officially is allowed as long as you don't do it in the last 100 kilometers. The last 100 kilometers you have to walk, and you have your certificate, your stamps to prove it. And before that, it's not so a big issue. Like say, the strict pilgrims will say he shouldn't do, but he did it on his way.
Okay. Now, was he funny in the book? I mean, were there any anecdotes as well, or?
He's funny there's anecdotes. There's about 2 points in the book where he starts talking about his life earlier, where he says, at this point in the journey, I sat down and I started thinking about this particular event, which actually at one point could be quite long. Otherwise, he tells little things that happened on the way and people he met, and he talks about them, and very often you have to laugh. He talks about guest houses, pensions, that maybe weren't up to scratch, were particularly dirty, or the bed was particularly bad, or something like this, and he'll talk about that, and generally it comes over, I don't know if it's meant to be funny in that particular point, but it is at times.
I guess
it's his way of writing, comes across certainly humorous, and you read these things and think, oh my God, you wouldn't want to stay there, and he, the way he does it, he doesn't just say, I don't know, it wasn't clean. He actually goes on and talks about it. He talks about the consequences. He talks about how he dealt with it, and then how other people came in and he observed how they were dealing with this situation. And that's what gives it this humour, that it's not just a statement, this hotel wasn't good. He actually goes on and tells you how he coped with it, and there's this coping that's generally quite the funny bit.
Yeah, that's right. It's not always the facts; it's how we deal with it.
Yeah, it's like there was one place where the food was so bad that basically they I've forgotten whether it was brandy or whiskey or what they ordered, but basically his group ordered sufficient alcohol to mix with the food to make it eatable.
Must have been bad, yeah.
Yeah.
And I read somewhere that he actually took this pilgrimage back in 2001.
It's 2001, yeah.
And was this book just published, or
the book was published last year?
Last year.
As far as I know, I'm just checking inside. 27th reprint, 2006. I'm not quite sure when the first edition was. I learnt about it last year.
Oh, yeah,
basically.
okay.
So when he actually wrote it, I'm not sure. But, no.
Well, would you consider going on a pilgrimage like this?
I'd love to do it. It's what fascinates me is certainly there's a lot of language in here. There's because he is someone who actually speaks lots of different languages. So he speaks Dutch, Italian, Spanish, English, German. Yeah. So he talks about meeting these people. He talks about speaking the different languages. So he meets someone from a particular country and would use this language to speak to them. And very often the quotes in there are in the original.
Oh, okay.
So there's quite a bit of English and Spanish to read in there, less Dutch, Italian. So that's something that would fascinate me. It's somewhere I can use a lot of different languages that I can use. It's in northern Spain, and so I'd love to do northern Spain, where all the guest houses you're talking in Spanish to them, and so it's actually something I'd love to do, but I don't think I'd have 6 weeks off to do it.
Well, that's a bit of a luxury.
It's a luxury.
You
can't take 6 weeks off. Self-employed, you can't take 6 weeks off, and with a family, and just go there and walk for 6 weeks.
Or you make it a top priority in your life. Midlife crisis.
Yeah, but I think I've got to wait a few years to get through to this top priority. I've done it once. I did 4 weeks Bolivia, but even that's now 6.5 years ago. So like I say, I'd love to do it, but I don't think it's a thing for the near future.
Yeah, I could imagine doing something like this, but I think I would like to have 6 months, so I could rest a lot in between. I wouldn't want to be under time pressure.
6 weeks for 600 kilometres, there are rest days in the book. So I don't think that's too stressed. If I think back to days when I'd walk with the scouts, and we would quite happily do 30 kilometres in a day. As a comfortable pace, and I've heard of people doing 50, 60 because they just keep on marching. You can't keep that up for 6 weeks.
Right. Well, it's going through the Pyrenees too, right?
The beginning is at the Pyrenees, yeah.
Right,
so and the last bit is certainly mountainous as well in Spain, but there's a lot in between. If I was to walk 30 kilometres a day, okay, then I'd have the whole book done the walk done in 20 days, thereabouts. So if I take 6 weeks and do it nice and slowly, then I don't think I'd need longer. But,
yeah, I think I would have to get shoes that are maybe 2 sizes bigger.
Comfortable shoes.
Right.
This is any form of walking, not necessarily. Comfortable shoes, and walk them in, so you don't buy a new pair of shoes and go there straight away. And I think that's one of the things he does talk about as well at the beginning. He went and consulted, what do I need for a trip like this, not knowing this, and actually ended up with a lot of weight in his rucksack that he didn't need. So actually, at the beginning of the trip, he's actually giving things away to make space in the rucksack. And the shoes, he's got some Canadian walking boots, and used those for the whole journey.
Oh, yeah.
And so she didn't get any blisters or anything at all until in Santiago, when he put other shoes on to go home, and then they had blisters all of a sudden. So yeah, if you've got good shoes, good walking shoes, good quality, that aren't going to fall apart in the middle, and you're used to wearing them, then you shouldn't have a problem. It's like anything. You don't walk around all day here in brand new shoes, because you'll basically hurt your feet.
Right. And did he have a companion, or he went on that trip by himself?
He went by himself. No, the people that go in groups. He talks about people that start off in groups, and either they have a difference of opinion on the way, and end up not walking in groups. More often than not, it's because they have different walking speeds. Someone wants to walk a bit faster, so they agree to meet somewhere on the way and meet up. And generally, in the first half of the trip, he meets all sorts of different characters. And walks maybe for a day with them, or spends an evening with them, and that's the end of it. And they see each other again maybe a week later. And in the second half, he meets up with a British woman, a New Zealand woman, who he's been seeing on the journey up to then every now and then. and basically walks the last part with them together. And they've got a walking speed that isn't always the same, but they manage to walk the same distance each day, however they do it. So they start together, they finish together.
But in between...
And it's in between. Sometimes they walk together, sometimes they don't, and one goes ahead and books the next room. And
okay. I guess that can be arranged.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be a nice thing if you had a companion. That adapts to your walking speed.
I think that's something you've got to find on the journey.
Yeah.
You can't unless you know someone who you literally really know is going to walk at your speed when you start off. It's not going to work out. So I think the idea of going and seeing who you meet, and there are so many people doing this, that you find someone, you're going to walk with them. And there are days when you want to walk on your own, you want to be by yourself, and you don't want the same person hanging on to you for 6 weeks.
That's true too, yeah.
So
6 weeks of 7 days of 24 hours.
Yeah.
That could get to you too, yeah. Well, would you recommend this book to anyone?
I'd recommend it as a read. It's a good read. So I've been reading it for about 6 weeks. I've taken about the same time to read it as he took to walk it, as a coincidence. A different time of year though. And so yes, if you're looking for something interesting to read about this journey, then it's interesting to read as a story. It's interesting to read as an account of someone's experience. What it isn't, it's certainly not a tourist guide to northern Spain. You won't learn much about the Spanish culture. You'll learn about individual pieces of the Spanish culture, and you won't be able to use it as a guide to walking. I think if I was to walk this, I'd probably read the book again before I go. I'd take it with me and check up what did he find in this town, what's interesting, what's not good. And knowing me, if he's described somewhere particularly bad, I'd want to go there and see it for myself. Yeah. But not necessarily stay there. But there are guides to the way which I'm pretty sure are probably going to be better because they've got the details in, they've got maybe the phone numbers in, they've got the exact way you've got to go to get your stamps. And he doesn't talk about any of this. He starts at the beginning and tells you what it's like when he comes into town, what he has to do to keep this pilgrimage status. But after that it's done and he goes into other things which are more interesting.
Right, so it's a book for anyone.
It's a book for anyone to read, and it's a good evening literature.
I think I'll probably get it myself, Something easy to read. Do you think that's a book that can be, put down for 1 week and then you can pick it up? It's one of those easy books to read.
I think I have put it down for 1 week and picked it up.
All right.
It's easy to read. It's something that, like I said, I'd read at night. Once I finished my work for the evening, I'd read that and then go to bed. And that's sort of literature for it. I think if you're on a long journey, train journey or something as well, it's that sort of book. It's not something you might want to just read for the sake of reading in the middle of the day, but like I say, it's a good book for the evening or for a journey.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I'll get a copy.
So we'll put a link up on the blog. So anybody who's interested, who's heard that now, says, I'd like to buy that, we'll put it up on the mondaypodcast.com and the other 2 sites as well. And if you want to buy it otherwise, it's available from Piper Verlag. It costs, at the moment, €19.90 at the time of recording. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, just to finish, to remind you that the form is available on the mondaypodcast.com. And last week's podcast is now available as a transcript on the site. So you might like to download that and listen to the fashion podcast again with the transcript and tell us if this is useful for you, if you want this in the future. Okay?
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.